I know that's got to be on the top of your mind. Like, I don't know if you want the Johnny Chan role that was in Rounders 1 or whatever, but I'm sure that would be a huge part of everything that you want right now is to play yourself in that movie.
Well, I love that stuff. I love acting. I love that sort of thing. I'm friendly with the guys. If they ask me to do a cameo, I will 100% say yes, and it would be a blast. Like, I'm a big fan. I have a couple saved voice messages on my phone. You know, one of them's from Edward Norton. Like,
Can you play it? Play it for us. Play it for us.
Hey, it's about it. No, I can't play it.
Welcome, everybody, to DAT Poker Podcast, episode 169. It's August 7th, 2024. I am your host, A. Schwartz, alongside producer extraordinaire Roscoe P. Coltrane.
What's up, white boy? I eat grass.
I love that. Terrence Chan, T, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. You know, it dawned on me that I missed the World Series of Poker. Like, I feel like it's been long enough now that, like, I don't know. I know it feels like it just ended in a way, but then I'm like, man, World Series is fun. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to play in. It's fun to go and see everybody.
Well, we got lots to talk about. World Series of Poker stuff. This whole episode is going to be World Series of Poker. Daniel Negreanu in Las Vegas. You're 50. How does it feel to be 50, Daniel?
You know, it was funny because today is my wife's birthday. She's 40 today. And I asked her the same question and no different. And for me, it was no different either. Like, it literally didn't register. You know, she actually told me that 30 hit harder, but 40 didn't hit at all, like, for her. So, yeah, I don't care. I mean, I think age is a mindset for the most part. And I'm always going to be young mentally, you know, and immature, hopefully. So, yeah, no, I mean, it was a nice dinner we had out with some friends, but I didn't feel.
Now you can say where you had it.
I was at Crossroads at the Resorts World.
We all knew. Anybody who could read between the lines got that from it, but
yeah.
We're going to be having dinner right here tomorrow night so that anybody of the 50,000 people who were watching this thing can show up.
I'm not kidding, though. It's happened to me where I said I'm going somewhere and I go there and then all of a sudden a guy shows up with pictures and he's like, can you sign these? You know, and it's like often those guys who the first time I ever learned about that, I didn't really understand that market. I was in Hamilton for the NHL. It was like a charity game during the lockout or whatever. It was in Hamilton. They had me as a coach. So I was hanging out with all the guys and we're about to get in the limo and there's a whole bunch of these autograph hounds. So I'm signing them because they have my picture and I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, let's go. You know, they're just like selling them, you know, and then they sort of gave me the tricks. It's like, don't just sign them to somebody. Yeah. Because if you say like, who do you want it to? And they don't say, no, just sign it. Well, they're often going to sell it. So, yeah.
Well, they'll send the kids. They'll send the kids to say, "Hey, sign my picture." I mean,
they come at you like it used to be really bad at San Jose at Bay 101. There'd be like the same group of guys, and they'd keep coming up to you and pretend like they put on a different jacket. Like a guy would come with a blue jacket, and then he'd come back like 20 minutes later with a red jacket. Like, where do you have these jackets? You keep them like in storage or something? You know, it's crazy.
What's the signed Daniel Negreanu picture going for on eBay? Is it
I wouldn't spend anything personally because like that's not my genre. But I don't know what they go for. But I can't imagine it's like, you know, let's say that it doesn't cost them anything to print it. So if they sell it for $10, they just made $10.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if you're in the market for a Daniel Negreanu signed thing, whatever, unless you live real far, like your autograph compared to most famous people of the similar stature is so easy to get. All you have to do is show up in Las Vegas anytime between May 28th and July 17th. And you can get Daniel Negreanu's autograph really easily.
Well, it's not that simple. A lot of people don't have the money to make the flight.
No, I know, but
for those that can't, it's like.
But that's the thing. Like, if you wanted Tiger Woods' autograph and you're just a regular person, like that's hard. Like you got to jump through a lot of hoops to get through to Tiger Woods. Like all you got to do is show up at the World Series, and there it is.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into it. Lots to talk about today. You mentioned it, Terrence. The World Series of Poker. This is going to be it feels like, well, it did just end, but we've got lots of World Series poker topics to talk about. And not the least of which is, after a long sort of courtship, Caesars has decided to sell the World Series of Poker brand to the GG Poker Group. Obviously, Daniel's affiliated with that group. Is it Answers? Is that how it's pronounced, Daniel? That's it, right?
Answers, what?
NSUS. How is that the holding?
Just NSUS. I don't think you pronounce it. It's an acronym, right?
Oh, okay. No, I know, but I heard other people saying it's pronounced answers. I'm like, how does that
I
say?
don't know, NSUS. I've never really actually said it. The NSUS group. I don't know. That's what I call it. But
We'll just call it poker.
whatever you want to go with. Good by me.
GG Poker, has bought the World Series Poker brand and licensed it back to Caesars for some indeterminate amount of time. They're going to continue. Caesars are going to continue to run the tournaments, the live tournaments within the U.S.
There's a stated amount of time, which it said in the release. It's a 20-year commitment.
Okay, sorry, 20 years. Yeah. 20 years for the World Series of Poker Caesars to continue running the World Series of Poker. So people are freaking out. The World Series of Poker isn't going to be in Vegas. Calm down. It's still going to be in Vegas for a long period of time. There might be a more enhanced international World Series of Poker live circuit now. And I think that's the sort of exciting part for the rest of the world when we look at this and go, okay, that's interesting, because now GG can funnel their players. They can hold tournaments that aren't in Rozvadov in the middle of nowhere in Czechoslovakia and have, bring the rest of the world into the World Series of Poker brand to experience it. And that's the first thing that jumped out to me about this was the exciting things forward. And we'll talk a little bit about online and stuff, but for live tournaments, that's the part that excited me, Daniel, with, where we're going to go with this in the future with GG and live events.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong in terms of the international capabilities in terms of growth, right? So what we have now, we have the World Series of Poker in the summer, which is a good 6-7 weeks, about 100 events. Then you've got, the GG Online Poker Series, which happens mid-August to mid-September. The schedule for that's released as well. And then the other flagship, which is going to be in December, okay? So anybody else who wants to run a tournament, if you don't want to run up against ours, don't choose this time because it's going to stay there, okay? In Bahamas in December, we're going to have essentially it's more of kind of like a high roller World Series of Poker with a super main event, 25K. So those are the three main staples as of now. But obviously going forward, there's some big ideas for growth internationally and both domestically. Like I think I don't think, Terrence, you had the opportunity to use it, but in Bahamas last year, we had the WSOP Plus app, which was very, very popular. Like the tech behind it is simply this. You have your money in there. You can use Bitcoin or whatever, right? You want to play in a tournament, you go click, you get your seat card. Your seat card shows up on your phone. And then you just go to your seat. There's no papers. There's no lines. There's no anything. They did have one thing, which I thought was kind of funny, and a lot of the high rollers kind of laughed about it, was there's a 5-minute cooling off period. So let's say you bust the 50K PLO, right? And you just punt it, okay? They're going to be like, all right, you know what? Take 5. Make sure you want to do this. Make sure you do this rebuy. However, there is a way to bypass that. If you did want to forget the 5 minutes, you can go right to the front desk there and they'll print it for you immediately, or just they'll give you the card immediately. But that tech, imagine what that can do for the World Series of Poker Las Vegas, which has events with 20, 30,000 players that have long lines. There's really no way to avoid that unless you update the tech. So I think from a player experience perspective, the tech side, that's going to be a much improved experience. And there's some other things too that I think will improve the flow and the logistics of the event. Having said that, listen, Caesar's still going to be running it. We're working in partnership. Not a lot changes in that regard. They're going to still, I guess the one difference is final say. GG was a sponsor, right, of the Caesar run, event. Now it's more so, well, what does NSUS, what do they think is the best approach going forward? And they have the ultimate say.
Yeah. And imagine there'll be like a for the 2025 World Series of Poker, we have the closer integration of the online events and the live events, or what kind of conversations have been had around what 2025 online WSOP looks like, if any? Is it just too early to talk about that stuff?
Well, yeah. So a lot has to happen, right? Like this deal has been in talks for quite some time. You have regulators, you have paperwork, you have Caesars is a publicly traded company. They have to cross their dots and teeth and all that. And we have to get regulatory approval and stuff like that. And that would happen also with software. My expectation, and don't write this down as as it's happening, but my expectation will be that the software available in the US will be GG Poker software at some point. I believe that their current deal runs out into the year. They're allowing them to continue to run until the takeover would eventually happen, which I think is a although I'll tell you what, to give them credit, the WSP.com software was upgraded. It was much better this year. Still not on the level of a GG Poker. So I don't know if necessarily that will happen directly for 2025, but it's definitely something, I think, you're gonna move towards. And other things too, I think that underrated is like when you have a corporation that's publicly traded making decisions, there's a lot of times your hands are tied.
Yeah.
We're freed up now. So in terms of broadcast schedules and, paywalls, like my expectation, my hope really is to somehow find a way to get the WSOP back outside the paywall. I think if you really want growth, that's one of the things that stunts it, right? Like Poker Go, I think does a great job, frankly, of like doing it. But how does Aunt Betty see this stuff? Aunt Betty doesn't see this stuff. She doesn't necessarily need Poker Go. She wants to see it in real time on a regular TV. So hopefully that's something too that we're freed up to potentially help with and innovate and find new ways to sort of deliver the product.
Yeah. I think by the way, people, this is off topic, but I think, if you're talking about Aunt Betty in the year 2024, even just having it on regular YouTube is probably sufficient. Like it doesn't need to be on ESPN, just regular YouTube, but not that paywall conversation was obviously a huge conversation. And, we could have had it a month ago, obviously, when the main event was actually running. But a lot of people were really upset about it being behind a paywall and say this is not how you grow the game. But with YouTube and Twitch and all this stuff, like it's very clear that this is a huge audience on its own. But when you make people pay one fucking penny for it,
of course,
one penny, it doesn't matter what the price is. It's just the difference between $0 and 1 penny is just so much.
Yeah, there's a roadblock. Like even for me, like if I want to read a New York Times article and says you got to pay $1, I'm like, I'm not going to do all that.
Yeah, you can afford the New York Times. You just don't want to.
I don't want to do the process, the tension, or whatever you want to call it. Like the friction is what they call it actually in the marketing world. Like I don't necessarily want to go through that entire process. So I think a lot of people unfairly sort of critique the Poker Go decisions on this because they're a business, right? And part of the business model is you have to pay for production. Like this isn't like a free thing. Like they have to find a way to make revenue. There's not enough advertising dollars to cover the budget. So subscriptions is the way. Well, if you're going to have subscriptions, why are people paying for a subscription if they could get it for free, right? You have to have some sort of, value behind the curtain, right? So when you open that up and all of a sudden, let's say, for example, you don't have that roadblock necessarily of needing to break even on the broadcasts, like, GG, wouldn't necessarily, you can use that now as much more of a marketing tool to drive traffic to, like you said, YouTube or whatever else, but really get, all the eyeballs on it in real time.
It's very reminiscent of the pre-Black Friday stuff when PokerStars Full Tilt, they would put on shows. PokerStars would put you on a show, and this clearly wasn't going to make money, right? Like this was not going to make money. They were just throwing money at it, but just knowing that they would get the clicks on, the commercial breaks. And
there's a huge people do not understand the business model of how these shows work. For example, high stakes poker, the only reason that happened on GSN because it was backed by websites. The PokerStars big game, the only reason that happened was because PokerStars was funding it. It was paid programming. Same with Full Tilt's Poker After Dark. They weren't making money. The show nobody paid these people to put on a poker show. They paid for the time. So instead of at 2 a.m. watching Ginzu knives being sold, you're watching poker because they paid for it. Why? Because they have a back end. When you don't have a back end, like Poker Go doesn't really have one, then you have to find other ways to, pay those production costs. And the way that they did it was a subscription model. And again, I think even some people who have a subscription, it's weird. Like they take offense to the idea that they show some of it for free, right? You're like, this, the first 4 hours are free. Why am I paying for this if it's free on YouTube? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like lose-lose for someone in that position. And I think, frankly, like the floodgates could potentially open by sort of getting past that little bit of a marketing roadblock in terms of, just eyeballs on the World Series.
All right. So, this deal makes sense for both brands, right? This makes sense for Caesars. It's $500 million, $250 million now, $250 million in 5 years. By all accounts, Caesars is not swimming in cash, shall we say. So it makes a bunch of sense for them. They bought the World Series of Poker from Binions, for $50 million 20 years ago, whatever it was. And this makes sense for GG. And we've talked about some of the reasons, but also, and Daniel, I think you mentioned it, as far as, GG in the US, this is a sort of a foothold. This gets them to be a partner or an owner that's licensing the World Series of Poker software back to that company that's already established in several states in the US. So this is a real good foothold for people who are hey, we need online poker in the U.S. again. We now have a large company with a lot of reach that has lobbying dollars to go out and try and get online poker back in the U.S. Obviously, it's difficult with the different states and all. California has a million different interested parties and all that kind of stuff. But this seems to make a lot of sense for GG as far as getting online poker, thinking about getting back into the US, Daniel.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I think like the utopian view for people would be get something passed at the federal level. That's very, very difficult. It would really require one of the candidates, either side, to be like, we're going to legalize online poker. Andrew Yang, oddly, was one who was like, this is dumb. Like he just said, like, he's like, obviously it's not the most important issue, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And it's really kind of silly that you can play lotteries and sports and all this stuff, but like not play poker, right? So he got it. But at a federal level, it would take somebody running or whatever to kind of want to cater to those voters, if you will, a little bit and take it on. More likely what you see is just big states kind of being looked at. Like we've got some good ones. You got Nevada. I mean, if you somehow were able to, bring California and New York into the player pool, that's a pretty big win, or even Texas, something like that. Now you're starting to pick up steam. And then once you start seeing some success there, where those operators are doing well, they're getting regulated taxes, everything's then maybe like other states would be like, why don't we do this too? Like Colorado and the like. So I think, unfortunately, it's less likely to just, go to Trump and be like, yo, Don, hey, can we get online poker legalized? I don't know that it's as easy as that. It's probably more realistic to do, state to state.
Yeah, and I think he's been saying for a lot of issues, kick it back down to the state. This isn't a federal issue, so that seems like something that would also fall into there. I think it's exciting for even the 4 states that do have online poker, because they've been using the World Series of Poker software that everybody says is terrible, and no, there's been no money put into it. And if we can get
it's
the GG
software, it's better. No, you got it. It's like if you played it before, it was bad. Like you said, I would agree with that. This year and the Pennsylvania, their software was better. They're not. Okay. It wasn't good software, but I mean, I got to give credit where creditors due. It was much improved. They made a lot of improvements finally, but there are some that were still you can't chat. Like they went from ... which is what you could write in the chat box, to now like absolutely no chat whatsoever.
That was removed. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Daniel, when WSOP first came out, there was chat. And then they basically just took that chat away because they didn't want to police the chat, because I would call you the most awful insult in the world, and then you would write support and say, hey, this guy's beaten, and we would just go back and forth and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't
actually work into ... So they got rid of the chat, but you could literally, like, say you put a brutal beat on me, Terrence.
Yeah.
I could write whatever I wanted in the chat, but it would show up as ... So you can take from that whatever you will. Like you beat me a pot, I'm just going to put ... And you'd be like, I know what that means.
Nice answer.
Nice answer, yeah.
Well played.
No, but you know what? I just wanted to say that a lot of the reason GG has been successful in the online space is because of how the gamification of poker and making it fun and making, engaging recreational players. And when we can bring that software to the current market, it seems like a win-win, and it seems like we can expand the current market over what we've had with that software.
Well, yeah, obviously you can grow the current markets, but again, like the big picture is, expanding to more states, legalizing in more states, because you can only, even if you expand the little markets that you're in, like you're still restricted. There's only so many people that are going to want to play online poker. So, getting the whole US back, it's a little bit of a pipe dream, because again, like, you said, I think state to state, like Utah, why should they have to if they don't want to? If Utah doesn't want online poker, they should be able to opt out. The unfortunate part about that is it makes the process much more arduous, because you have to go speak to regulators in each state, and it's kind of I've done it before. I've gone, and it's tough. I used to go to Sacramento and speak to, I remember just this one time we had a little poker event, and they were all the Republican senators or whatever. And we had an event there, and every single one I spoke to, they're like, dude, seriously, we'd love to vote for online poker here, but if I do, like Sheldon Adelson will completely cut me off, right? That's politics 101, right? It's like as simple as that. He pays me to not get this through, because Sheldon was sort of anti-online poker. So yeah, but with him gone, I mean, you would think that opens up some more opportunities that didn't exist before. But
does his wife not do have the same stance?
I don't know specifically what hers is or how important that is. See, he was active in trying to stop it. I don't know if she's there. The other problem I remember in California specifically was the Pachanga tribe. You know, they have their tribes, they have their, you know, they have their gaming and stuff like that. And if you can't help them understand how this could benefit them, then they're going to poo-poo it, right? Like they have brick and mortars, right? Which is kind of outdated. At this point, you know, if you are a casino that has a brick and mortar, it just makes sense to have an online arm, right? But you know, maybe now, I don't know, maybe it'll be easier, but we'll see. I think I think that'll be, you know, I would hope that's kind of a focus because the US is a huge market, right? It really is a massive market that if you could get online, if you, and of course, most importantly is finding a way to get the US players to be able to play in the international player pool, enough for the ring fencing. That's difficult too, but that would be like the ultimate dream.
You mentioned it earlier, Daniel, having final say now over the World Series of Poker brand. And I wonder when you look forward to the 2025 World Series of Poker in Vegas and others around the world, what that sort of looks like as far as schedule, as far as, you know, what events are on the schedule, when it runs, all the broadcasting stuff. What do you see much of a change from what we've seen now? Or do you think maybe, well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be more events tailored to, you know, the GG brand?
Well, so here's what I think. Like personally, I hope to see that, you know, like Jack Effel will stay on and continue to do what he does and, you know, create the schedules as there. I don't want to see too much change to the schedules. One thing I will push back on hard is any sort of elimination of variety, right? Obviously online is a different animal. International is a different animal. Bahamas this year, we do have a dealer's choice event, 25K buy-in. But typically what you see, like poor Terrence, unfortunately, will go down as the last reigning limit hold'em online.
They couldn't take the smoke. What can I say?
They couldn't take the smoke. Yeah. So you know what you do is you look at the World Series Poker Vegas, and for me, what has made that special, that's different than every other series that you run, is the commitment to mixed games. Mixed games, the big ones draw 100 to 400 players. For the smaller ones, whatever. You could run, you know, $500 online, like no limit tournaments that would have much more people, but then you're sort of changing what the World Series of Poker is. It's the World Series of Poker, not the World Series of Hold'em. So a balanced schedule that always protects the intent, just like make sure that we, you know, continue to have those on the schedule and not reduce the schedule in that regard. Like, I don't think you need to. Like I always said, you know, if you run the World Series of Poker, sure, it's a big task, right? Why not just, if these 60 guys want to have a tournament, why not just let them have it? You know what I mean? It takes up 8 tables, whatever, you know? They're going to pay their rake. It's fine. It doesn't have, not every event has to have 3,000 players, right? So, you know, I hope that we continue to do that. I also think too, kind of fine tuning a little bit, just overall, like taking a look at the entire global picture. I think there was a time during COVID, for example, where, you know, or around there where after COVID, you had the World Series of Poker, you know, live. Then you had the World Series online in Vegas. Then you had the World Series online on GG. There's just like it might have been too much, you know? So kind of fine tuning the markets and what your offerings are. There's a lot of really smart minds behind how they're going to roll that out. And we're going to do that, you know, in conversation and in cooperation with the people from Caesars. You know, this isn't something where we're like, you guys shut up. No, the input, the conversations are always going to stay there. I think, again, like I said, the main difference is, you know, if GG really thinks this is something we want to do, then, you know, we'll be able to do that.
And, you know, obviously you know that the mixed games are near and dear to my heart. And to loop back around on that and use my clout as the last ever online no limit PLO champion in the history of GG Poker and the WSOP. It's that this feedback cycle also works both ways. So, for example, I would never probably have played short deck if it weren't for GG Poker offering short deck, because I don't live in a place where I could just walk down and play. I don't live in Asia where they play these games. But now short deck is a WSOP event. And so these things often do work both ways in conjunction. Now, obviously, short deck becoming a WSOP event was not because of online. It was because of that the high rollers play these games live in Asia. But GG, if they were to expand their online game offerings, can shore up a lot of these things too. And now, sure, like what is it worth the investment for them to develop all the software for 7-card stud when 100 people play the 10K 7-card stud at the World Series of Poker, and whatever, like 600 of them play the 1500 or however many it is? Probably not worth it, but it is something worth thinking about, that poker does work in both directions. We've seen the entire history of the last 20 years of poker is online poker making live poker a better version of itself and influencing it for better, and those two kind of coming together to have a positive impact, reinforcing each other. So the online online satellites made the WSOP what it is, and the prestige of the WSOP in turn made online poker more popular by making it this cool, sexy thing that was on ESPN and got people in the middle of Idaho to log on to their computers so that they could play online poker back when they were allowed to do that. So there's the effect is always kind of gone both ways. And it's, if I have something that I'm hopeful over this future, it's like, hopefully, there can be positive development in both directions. Just like we talked about with the whole live streaming, the World Series of Poker, is that if you have the situation now where you have an entity that's, willing to lose a little bit of money or spend a little bit of money live streaming the World Series of Poker to get more eyeballs on the World Series of Poker, because that has a positive ROI in the long term of them, then that's good for everybody overall. It's good for the company itself overall, and it's also good for the poker economy.
Yeah, so that's obviously something when I first came on, I asked about, because I'm a mixed game guy. I love mixed games.
You're the reigning champion of mixed games now.
Yeah,
you get the whole next year. You're the reigning champion of mixed games.
Exactly. So obviously that's something that I asked about, and the response I got was quite simple. Obviously, when GG was a fledgling company growing, right, the priority was growth on what works, right? You're going to spend your man hours. You're going to spend that time developing things in games that are popular, right? You're trying to grow, right? So when you're doing that, mixed games or adding that is kind of like low on the totem pole of priority, right? My hope is that, again, there's still a lot of growth happening. My hope is that long term, we can have an expanded schedule. But as you said, Terrence, when they do that, you have to balance the fact that okay, this isn't really going to make us any money because it's not going to be popular. And then how much time and resources and man hours we want to put into revamping it, because the way the GG software works, it's pretty interactive. It's really neat, so the formatting for the table, to think about the way that the tables work mobile, right? So one of the reasons that GG Poker really excelled and grew as fast as it did was because their mobile client was so much better than everybody else's. There was a point where I think in Asia, the vast majority, I don't know if it was even 80%, didn't play on a desktop or a laptop. They're playing on mobile phones, tablets, things like that. So the question is how feasible or how easy really is it to make stud visually appealing and easy and all that stuff? It can be done, I'm sure, but on a much smaller screen, it's a little more difficult to run stud games and things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's one of my hopes, but I don't think that that's something that's high on the priority list right now. Right. So it's just going to have to take a back seat with so many things have to be, take place here. I think for me, the main priority for World Series next year is having somehow finding a way to get the WSOP Plus app, viable in Las Vegas. If you can use Bitcoin there, I don't know if that's the case because Bahamas has different regulatory rules. What a boon that would be. How much easier would it be for people who come overseas to come to Vegas and be they don't have to transfer money. They just go into their wallet, buy into a tournament. That would be awesome.
Maybe talk to somebody about getting Canadians tax exempt from the World Series too. But Daniel, I'm wondering what your appetite is to jump back in, right? I think in the past you've been on the Players Advisory Council for the World Series of Poker, and now GG Poker owns it. You're the ambassador. Are you interested in jumping in and shaping some of the offerings, the schedule, some of the changes? Or you kind of sit back and go, no, that's not really my role?
No, that's something. Here's the thing. I already kind of had that role. People came to me with ideas. I would speak to the people there. I would talk to Jack about the Player of the Year systems, about the scheduling, about the structures. I've already been involved in that stuff. Even though, that wasn't part of my, official role. I wasn't paid for that. I do it because I love it. So for me, it's kind of a natural progression to being unofficially doing that, to now actually, sort of contributing as a consultant on all this stuff in an even more meaningful way. I want to definitely look at everything they're doing. I do every year anyway. I'm not the only one. There's other people who had to look at the schedule, look for conflicts, look at any structure mistakes. I would go through it with a pretty fine tooth comb. But even then, I miss some things. It's a lot. It's a big process. That's why I can't say it enough. Like, I think Jack Deffel is one of the most underappreciated, industry people in the game. Like, I really do. Like, I think that, there's a lot of people out there who run events and it's great, but the World Series of Poker is on another level. Like, the amount of stuff, the logistical stuff that goes into that. And he's running around like crazy doing it all. I mean, it's really, really impressive. And I think the one thing too with Jack is, I think people don't realize like how much he actually listens to the players. Like, he's one of those guys like, listen, if you guys want this, we'll do it. Like, they're not the people that are like, no, we think it should be this way. If you guys have an 80-player tournament and you want to have time bans, okay, whatever you guys want. They're very, easygoing with that sort of stuff, and they listen to us. And everyone's voice matters, frankly. Whether you share it with me or you share it directly with them, the more voices that have the same sort of views on something, the more likely that, you're going to see, change happen.
Good. Awesome. Okay. So we touched on it a couple of times. We've got a couple of poker festivals that have released schedules. One is the World Series of Poker in Paradise in the Bahamas. So World Series of Poker Paradise in the Bahamas. That series will run December 6th to the 19th. It has 15 bracelet events. The highlight, we've talked about it a bit, is the 25K super main event with a huge $50 million guarantee, the biggest guarantee in live poker history. And when you think about that, obviously the main event is a completely different animal, but and it's a 10K buy-in, but we're talking $100 million for the World Series of Poker main event. This is half of that, like $50 million guarantee for a 25K buy-in. First off, Daniel, are we wagering if this is going to hit the guarantee again, or let's just maybe stay away from that? But do you look at that 50 million and go, I don't know how we're going to hit that?
I honestly, so for the last few years, I've always been kind of astonished at how insane they are and how crazy they are with these guarantees. I'm like, bro, you're never going to hit this. You're never going to hit this. And they keep doing it somehow, right? So I'm like, I'll often look at this guy. I don't see how they do it. So I've actually, now maybe, who knows, I've turned the corner. I'm like, you know what? I do think they're going to hit it, okay? I think they're going to qualify maybe, let's say, like 1,000 people from online, and then you need 1,000 more. I don't think that we've released the schedule and structures for how it's going to work, but my guess is, I think a fair assumption was having some online day ones, some multiple flights, maybe, there, maybe a reentry or two or unlimited. I don't know. But I do think somehow, some way, they're going to get there. And again, the way they see it, and they always have, is it's a win either way. Really is. Because if you hit it, how awesome is that to hit it? And if you don't, guess what? Players just got a ton of value. It was a really worthwhile tournament for the players to go to because they got, added equity in the event. So from that perspective, it's a win-win. And putting out that big number there, it catches eyeballs. I think it'll be good enough where, let's say you can't afford it, you're a no limit guy, you can't afford it. You'll probably be able to sell pieces. You can go to pokerstake.com, put pieces up, because it should be, a high value event with, some maybe, like what you wouldn't see typically in a 25K. Like when I go play at the Aria and I play at the Poker Go Studio at 25K, I'm sitting down with Chidwick, Kuhn, all the crushers. I think in this one, you're catering to the South American market, the Canadian market, the East Coast market, the European market. And there would be a lot of like casual players. Also, most importantly, really, if you look at the co-sponsor, if you is the collaboration with Triton, right? So this is a Triton event as well, which means you'll be able to access all like those players that play there, and they have huge fields there. So I think it's going to be, a success. I think like if you look at the schedule, and some people were commenting on it, like, hey, there's no low buy-ins for this thing. I'm like, it's Bahamas, okay? A banana is going to be $9. I'm just telling you, all right? That's how Bahamas rolls. Like, it's just expensive. So when you think about running a series, like, does it make sense to run $500 tournaments? And like, who can afford that wants to play $500 buy-in tournaments? If you're going to the Bahamas, it's sort of a high roller scene. It makes a little more sense, I think, to sort of cater to those people that are affluent or can afford it. And again, a lot of people are just going to be there for the one event, the super main. And maybe we'll have some side events that are smaller, but we'll see.
You've also got the World Series of Poker Online before that. So you'll have the whole client base basically on the site, and they can run satellites then.
Well, yeah. I mean, the satellites will be, like I said, I do think that they will look to have about 1,000 qualifiers from online.
Yeah, the other event everybody's looking at, you mentioned it, the partnership with Triton, and that is the $500,000 buy-in Triton Millions Invitational. It's an invitational, and I think we've seen this in the past at Triton. If you're an amateur, you can invite one professional player in, and there's designated. There's a line that they draw. Sometimes it's a little fuzzy on who's a poker or who's a professional player and who's an amateur. But I found it interesting because I wonder what goes on behind the scenes for some of the pros to kind of lobby some of the amateurs to get an invite, to be their invite. Right? They get one, I believe. So. It's not like they can invite 10 people and just say yes, yes, yes to everybody. They got to say no to people. And is there some staking going on, or what kind of goes on behind the scenes here, Daniel, as far as how some of these pros get invites to this?
Yeah, I think every arrangement's different. And I think what's unique about this one, we didn't touch on it. They've done these before, and they've been really successful and really kind of fun to watch, frankly. But the biggest buy-in they have is 200K. This is 500K. This is massive. This is a really big buy-in event. As far as like how the deals work, it might work as simply as this. It's like, okay, so I'm a business guy. I'm like, all right, Kuhn, you want to go? It's like, okay, I'll invite you, but maybe we either A, swap 20%, or I just get to buy a piece of you at markup, at no markup, whatever the case may be. So every negotiation is going to be different for every player. I think most pros just like love the opportunity because it's a cool idea. And it's still a high value tournament, even though if you are a pro, your first day or your first 6 to 8 hours is going to be really, really tough. You get the benefit of half the field being non-pros. And you sort of touched on it, like, well, how do they decide who's a pro and who's not? It's a small committee, Paul Fua and those people where they make these decisions. And again, sometimes you'll see some because they blur the lines. Like Eric Wasserson played in the business side. And I was like, okay, everyone's like, well, what the hell? But like, honestly, there's plenty of the business guys are way better than him and no limit hold'em. Like, admittedly, he'll admit you. Like Punat Punsri was a business guy, and that guy is like a pro, basically, right? So the thing is just because someone's a businessman doesn't mean they're dumb. It doesn't mean they're not really, really good at poker. They just qualify differently. Like, frankly, I mean, I'd love. You know what? I actually told people this, and it's so stupid. I kind of would rather play against the pros. And we sort of touched on that before. As dumb as that is, how like people always say, I wish I could play higher stakes where they respect my raises and I know where they're at. But in a tournament, it can be wild playing against, direct. Obviously, it's still beneficial to do that.
Well, how about this, Daniel? We'll do a funny kind of side bet where we'll cross book your day one starting stack. I get your action for your day two starting stack, and you get your action for your day one starting stack, and then we'll whoever has a higher ROI at the end of that, we'll pay each other. We'll make that bet.
We're not doing that. Okay. Well, what's cool about the event? So people are like, well, why do they do the separation? How does this help the recreational amateur player? Well, first of all, the early going is very deep stack. That benefits pros, right? So you don't have to worry about any sharks. More importantly, when you do combine, right, the business side, like the Talal Shakurchis, right? He might end the business side and he's got like 2 million in chips. Meanwhile, the pros have like 340K. So now you're going to be nearing the bubble, and Talal has this massive advantage. So the advantage for the Rex is they can accumulate chips, which end up being worth even more with future game implications. While the pros, they're going to have to, it's very difficult it's going to be difficult on the pro side for you to have the chip lead. Now, how do you approach the pro side? One of two ways. Do you go to battle? Do you like buck heads and say, you know what, I'm going to war, I'm going to go hard? Or do you say, you know what, I'm going to sit back. I'm just going to get through this damn hard part, and then I'll try to pick off the Rex later and, sort of maintain and play a much more small ball-y style. I think different players approach it differently, but I think it's a unique event. And for a buy-in that big, businessmen, here's the thing. They don't want to be just complete suckers. I remember when Guy ran the one drop 1 million, they're like, they don't want to be picked apart where it's like, they're sitting there and there's 8 pros playing against them, just destroying them. They want a little bit more of an even playing field. And by doing this in such a way where, half the field is going to be quote unquote non-pros, well, now even if you are minus EV, you're not minus a lot.
All right. Should we have a little fun and try and predict how many people are going to be in this event? Terrence, what do you look for when you want to set a number here for total number of entrants?
In the 500K? I mean, I think it really is just dependent on how many businessmen they decide are businessmen, isn't it? Like, because I feel like it's, I don't know, how many businessmen would play a 500K? The number is that many times 2.
Right.
I don't know what that number honestly.
There won't be a
looks like.
shortage of pros, so all you have
Yeah,
to do
exactly. It's that number times 2. It's just
you
I
just
don't.
Take a stab. I'll go first. I'll say there will be 54 unique entrants in the
50 for
five
okay. I thought there might be like 35 businessmen, so I'm probably too high. So I thought 70.
You got 70? Okay.
Terrence,
Dan?
I'm going to say that you're not too high. I'm
Okay.
going to go over.
Wow.
I think you're going to have 100 players in this field.
Wow.
I think you're
Okay,
going to.
how many of those 50? So we got 50 businessmen. How many of them are Wasserson types that are a little dubious?
I don't think many at all. Like, I mean, I
Okay.
just look at the list of people that play. Like, basically, the way that I base it is I look at the Triton 200s, right? So if you look at how many players the 200Ks get, how much different will a 500K be to those business types, right? The pros will get staked. They'll find their way in. There won't be a shortage there. But I think there's, let's say, for example, are there 50 businessmen that would play the 200K? Yes, we've seen that.
Yeah.
So how many of those wouldn't play the 500K? I mean, obviously, it's a lot more money, but a lot of these guys have way too much money anyway.
I mean, it's travel for some people. Like
I think Bahamas is a really good location for it because it is kind of central. It's it's not that big of a. I think Bahamas is actually more lucrative because again, you'll get some U.S. people who maybe don't go to Triton. Maybe the David Einhorns and the Kathy Laneys and the the Rick Solomons of like or that ilk, as well as the Triton crew who comes over. And then you've got like a melting pot, and it's. I think one of the key things too for Bahamas is it's relatively easy to get money in and out. You just send a wire; it's not like a huge hassle.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm pretty bullish on it. I think 100, but I mean, I might be nuts too. Like, I definitely think Adam's under for sure.
Another thought on the, you'd mentioned like the if you're a wealthy businessman, you're going to want to picked apart by 8 pros at your table. Another thing about this is it's not just about, like, oh, I'm the live one at the game and I don't enjoy that. And so it's a little bit better if there's like 4 or 5 of me at every table or all of me at every table. It's maybe even like arguably like the social element. You hear about all of these high stakes games among whether it's Hollywood types or just like wealthy businessmen or whoever. And I think it's probably just more of like they're playing poker among their peers as opposed to like, here's this guy in a hoodie and sunglasses and all he's done is play poker since he was 18 years old and he's really good at that. But like, if I'm successful because I'm a, clothing retailer or I'm an oil guy or whatever it is, like it's probably more fun, I would imagine for me.
It's a little bit like a billionaire summer camp, really. It's like they can park their yachts right by the water. They can have their parties. Like that's happened in the past, the Blazarians have come by and whoever else, like they'll have their cash games and side action. It's kind of a get together in a really beautiful location.
They're having a home game. They're organizing a private game, but it's not really private. Somebody else is doing it, and it's
and
not
what
private.
I think you'll do because of the location is it'll converge. These types of people from different parts of the world that might not always converge. I think most of them are Triton guys, right? But you'll have some other ones that don't necessarily make the trip overseas that will make the trip to Bahamas, like people in New York or Florida. That's a really easy flight to get to Bahamas.
All right, let's move on to the 2024 World Series of Poker Online.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
What about the DC, bro?
Oh, that's right. The 25K Dealer's Choice. This has got to be the largest dealer's choice in the history of poker, right? This is 25K dealers. How many people? Okay, so how many people? It's going to be less than 100 for the 25K Dealer's Choice.
Okay, so let me say for this one first, like, because I've looked at the schedule, I looked at the preliminary, and, originally it was slated as a 50K. And I was like, I think 50, here's the problem. So dealer's choice of all the mix, it doesn't draw quite as well as the others because some people are afraid of the games that they don't know, the Badusis, the Badaces, the 5-card draws, the pot limit triple draws. Having said that, I thought at the 25K price point, and this is going to sound really like rich people problems, but 25K buy with a 25K rebuy, a lot of the high rollers, because it's cheap, okay? I just said because it's cheap, because to them it's cheap. They're like, they might fuck off in a 25K. I'm serious. Like, just as much as like Adam, you might be like, oh, that's a $50 mine. I don't know the games. I'll play. Why not? Right? For them, the 25K price point in comparison to 500K, 100K, all these big ones they play, I think for shits and giggles, you might actually have some of these guys. And we did see some of it at Dealer's Choice this year. Some of the players that didn't know all the games. They're like, fuck it. how bad off can I be? They'll try to
Real
play.
bad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, real bad, of course. But that'll make things interesting in terms of like game choice, right? You're gonna
I was just gonna say, what games are you calling when you got three guys who have no clue how to play Badesi?
The answer is stud no qualifier. It's always stud.
I am stoked about the fact that last year, there was talk of a mixed game event. There wasn't one at all, right? So now at least, we do have a 25K, for the mixed game players on the East Coast, and then for people like me, I don't think it's going to be. I mean, listen, I'll be fair. I don't think it's going to be a huge field. Like, again, for a lot of the reasons, like dealer's choice isn't. It's scary to some people, and that's why I've had some thoughts about, maybe formatting it so that it's a little more appealing. Like few options. Number one, you could make it just a big bet mix, right? But the problem with that is then you lose all the limit guys. Number two, you could make it just say, for example, dealer's choice, but only from 8 to 10 games, right? But that sort of defeats the purpose of dealer's choice too, to a little degree. The third option, which I love, but it's not right for Bahamas. I'd love to see this tried in the studio at some point. And this is Tim Duckworth's idea, and I got to give him credit for it because it was his idea first. Is everyone gets to, like, say, for example, a pad with stickers on it, and you have 20 stickers on it, right? And then, Terrence, it's your choice. Okay, you pick a game. Say it's limit hold'em. You hand in your sticker. You can't call it anymore until you're out of stickers. So now the strategy is, well, you like limit hold'em, but are you going to call it in level 1? No. You're probably going to want to call it later and hold on to it. And then maybe like, okay, do I want to keep like a good short stack game late, for the bubble? All these types of things, I think. And what that does too is it makes it a more pure tournament in that, like, you're going to end up playing all the games for the most part, like an equal amount for the most part. Obviously, some people, will bust and only have called 8 of theirs and maybe leave the ones they don't like. But overall, it's another layer of strategy. Again, I don't think that's right for Bahamas. So I think for Bahamas, I think we just try it as a dealer's choice, as everyone knows, and run it that way and see how the numbers look. I'm hoping for that one between like 60 and 80 at the top. I think 80 would be a big
I had
number.
32 uniques. That was my number. 32 unique entries, only because you said it was a single rebuy.
Probably depends on how many of those guys who can't play Badesi jump in, but I guess we'll see. All right, the other one to talk about is the World Series of Poker online schedule, hosted by GG, and this has been released. The dates are coming up. They are 11 days away, August 18th to September 30th. 33 World Series of Poker bracelets will be awarded, Terrence. Got to get load up your GG account.
There's a short deck on there, by the way, Terrence.
There is, yeah.
So yeah, you don't get to have that title of no limit PLO necessarily.
Non-big bet games. Non-big bet games.
Now we're getting extra specific.
Listen, I'm going to steal a line from my good friend Matt Grapenthien. I'm very good at knowing whether to bet. I'm not good at the how much part.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, you should definitely bet here. How much? Well, that's about right.
That's not my problem. That's somebody else's problem. I'm very good at the bet or not bet part. I'm not so good at the how much.
Yeah, that's why I play pot limit Omaha.
People like me who like video games, like old school video games, where it was simply like just jump or shoot. That's it. I don't need 7 controllers to switch the gun, to shoot this gun, to shoot that gun. Like, no, bro. Like,
you got a grenade launcher on this button, and you got this guy kicks the guy in the head.
Jump, shoot. That's it.
That's the way I play poker.
Space Invaders. All right. The main event again is going to be a 5K buy-in, $25 million guarantee. Bananas again. So I mean, Jesus, across these two events, we've got 75 million in guarantees.
Lots of millions and millions and millions guaranteed. It's pretty wild, like how hot poker is, I'm looking forward to this one too. Guys, by the way, maybe I can, get some insight because I'm going to be streaming again. We're going to come to Vancouver, most likely. I tried to stay in the same room I stayed in last time. They say it's booked. That's not good. That's not good. Because we looked at the other room and I'm like, nope, we don't want that one. So
those seagulls are going to miss you.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. But I am definitely going to be doing the streaming again. I'll probably go for the last couple weeks, pretty close to the last couple weeks, and be there for the main event, the 25K. I'm also going to be in the comms with Jeff Gross for the last 10K GG millions on, I think, October 1st. So we'll do commentary on that. Which reminds me of something I didn't think about, but off topic, and I probably shouldn't insert it here, but I've been rewatching the PPC. The 50K, and I have so many screenshots.
I wouldn't fucking watch it every day if I won it.
Well, I mean, I like to get, I have so many screenshots of like clear, massive mistakes that are made in that thing.
By you? Any by you?
No, I made some small ones for sure, but I'm saying like just massive, huge mistakes. that I've been talking with friends about, and I thought, would this be worthwhile for people to see a video of me breaking it all down? I'm thinking maybe we'll do one.
Let's go.
I'll send some to you, Terrence, because
Yes.
you look at them and be like, you'll see some that are just like objectively bad, just mistakes. And that's why
Shoot that content in my veins.
I kind of enjoyed having Jared in the booth.
Yeah.
Jared does not pull punches. Like when he was in there, he's like, honest with you, he's like the fourth best player at the table in this game, and this was bad. Like he just says, this was really bad. Like he's like he was shitting on Yanni so hard. He's like, Yanni, you can see now. In Big Bet, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's really bad in these games, but he's great at triple draw. He's the best. He tells it exactly how he sees it. It was kind of fun to watch back there. But anyway, off topic.
And no, but that's again, I think I mentioned it right off the top. I loved watching Jared, and that's what we need. I mean, we get a lot of fun with Ollie and Nick for sure, but they're Nick's a player. He's not going to call people out and say you're terrible. Jared has no filter, doesn't care, and it's great to have somebody.
I'm a big fan of scorched earth commentary, but again, you have to do it in the right environment. The 50K PPC is a really good environment for that because it's all pros, man. Right? Yeah. You don't have to worry about poor, oh, you're going to hurt the Rex feelings. You're playing the 50K PPC. You play a hand really bad. You're going to get torched. Like, I think, who else would be good because he doesn't pull any punches would be like Chris Kruk or Scott Seaver. If you know these two guys,
would be amazing.
Chris Kruk would be pretty fucking good too. I promise you. He's he will just rip them to shreds.
Oh, Deeb would too, right? I mean, I think probably wouldn't care. But yeah, I totally agree. And I think to your point, the way you do it is the best, is the important part. Like Jared said, Yanni's the best triple draw player. He's terrible at these games, but he's good at this, right? It's the way you deliver it. And that was fantastic.
He's not always right too. Like he hasn't, there was a couple hands where he said, he didn't like the way I played it because I hate this from Daniel. He needs to re-raise here, right? Then I explained it to him, and he's like, actually, you're right. Right? Because he's doing it in the middle of, so like when everyone approaches poker, they approach it from their lens and how they would approach the situation. Because they're like, well, this is the right play. And they don't see the exploits that other people are making. For example, I'll give you one. He noticed I made a small 3-bet from the small blind with Queen Jack off against Yanni. And he's like, I hate it. He needs to go bigger here and whatever. He didn't understand that I was taking advantage of Yanni's plays in no limit game in a very different way. With my small 3-bet. Like I was actually exploiting him because Yanni folded anyway. He had Jack 10 off and he folded to my very small 3-bet. And then when I explained it to him, he understood it. But there are some spots where you can just equivocally say like, this was a mistake, and he does a good job of those. And I think it's fun. And again, even if he's wrong, so what? Like, that's okay. You can get people to like correct them. And, the point is he has a strong opinion, not just like some commentators, like they kind of are afraid to critique. And I think it's respectful. But at the same time, you can be like, well, that's unique. Maybe not how I would have proceeded, but like that's their nice way of saying like this is awful, right?
Well, the problem is for somebody to commentate on it, they need to be an expert at it. If they're an expert at it, they're a player, and they're in this group of players, and they're going to alienate their fellow friends. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have Norm Macdonald saying that's terrible because Norm doesn't know, or a bad example because Norm
doesn't hold any weight. When Jared says it, it holds some weight. When Chris Vitch is going to go into the booth, which I haven't gotten to yet, but he's very, very good. He's going to tell it like it is from his perspective. But he also, that you can do so with also respecting the players,
I was going to say, Chris Vitch is like a perfect example. He never gets personal about it. Never says, this guy's terrible.
And like Jared, at one point, Jared even says, though, he's like, because I actually went on a heater. I went from 400K to 4 million. And he's like, see, it's like, I would have been out of this tournament. But Daniel's here with 4 million now because I would have played those hands differently. So, it's, some of those finer spots are, but again, as long as you're a commentator and you know how to like show respect and understand too, like, when you're under the heat of the lights, like what we do at the main event every year, everyone in the main event is like, oh my God, they're an expert. Oh, Kristen Foxen punted. Oh, Brian Kim's terrible. Nicholas Austin sucks. Like we can all sit armchair quarterback, but we didn't play for 8-9 days straight, 12 hours under the lights, with freaking, you're on low sleep and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's part of the fun, right? Isn't that fun? Like that's what we love to do. We love to watch it. And then shoot the shit with each other and go, oh my God, this was a punt, terrible. And I think that's a plus overall from a commentary perspective and a viewership perspective.
All right, back to the World Series of Poker Online, hosted by GG. 9 of the 33 events have guarantees attached to them. Total of 61 million in guarantees. And further, we've been talking about high buy-in tournaments and stuff, but if you're out there and you're a tournament player and you want to be part of a big guaranteed tournament, circle August 26th on your schedule, because there's a $215 buy-in mystery millions bounty event with a $10 million guarantee, with a top did I read this right? A top mystery bounty of $1 million for
How
250.
fucking crazy is that? I mean, let's be objective. That's insane, guys.
Yeah.
Like $200 buy-in. I don't care who you are or how good you are, right? Like, you can buy into a $200 buy-in if you just bust the right guy and you pull the right thing. You can win like $1 million. That's like, you could play like put $1 into the lottery and try to win $1 million, but like, this is literally just like, boom, $200. You make it to the the stage where you bust players, you win, you open the chest, it's $1 million. I think that's like, I'm not a big bounty guy, but like, it's a really fun format, and I think a lot of people are going to end up with the capability of winning prizes they wouldn't otherwise have a chance to do, because their skill level might not be good enough and they need too much luck. Here,
I have a question. Do you know? I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when they do the bounty draws, like, is that in a lobby somewhere? Like, one of the fun about a live mystery bounty is, you see the guy go up to the drum, he pulls the thing, he doesn't get it, or he pulls the thing, everybody sees it, but they know that those ones are off the table. Like, do you know if on GG, like, that like, when somebody essentially goes to pull their thing out of the envelope, is that done live? Do you know the answer to that?
I believe it's a chest. I could be wrong, because I actually haven't played a mystery bounty.
But is it a chest that only you see if you're the guy pulling the bounty, or is it a chest that everybody sees? It's a question.
Like everyone at the table, maybe. Like, obviously, if there's a tournament with like 100 people, you're not going to see everyone. Maybe
Right.
Actually, I think you might. Actually, I think. I mean, I could be wrong.
You can get back to me on that one.
My guess is, based on how they do it in the live, is there may be on screen when someone pulls a bounty, you see who it is and what was pulled. So, because what they do when you play the bounties in the World Series is you see the full list of what bounties are available.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody pulls one, it shows up on screen, and now you see, okay, there was 3 100Ks, now there's only 2. So you sort of like update in real time and know when the million's pulled and all that kind of stuff. So I would imagine that's transparent. But again, don't quote me on that, because the first mystery bounty I played was this year. I never played one before.
Yeah. Cool.
We mentioned earlier all PLO, no limit hold'em, and of course the strip deck. But to your point earlier, Daniel, you were talking about Jack saying, look, if 80 guys want to play this tournament, go ahead, go over there in the corner and do it. Why do you think we wouldn't have some more mixed games on this schedule, given that it's an online environment and we can just have it and bring more people in? I don't know.
You want to, that wasn't, when I said that, I didn't say like, just, have an event. Just like, if you want the rules to be your way, great. But you want to sort of have you want to have a schedule that isn't insane, right? You don't want to run 5 tournaments a day, like in the live event. And then for the bracelets, like, we want to be if you want to maintain the prestige, which both GG and Caesars care about. Everyone who says different, they just don't know what they're talking about. I promise you. They actually genuinely care. And I think there's a consensus that maybe we went too far and we have to find a way to rein it in, right? So rather than just expand and have like oodles of bracelets, like if you look at the GG Online series, there's not a bracelet event every day, right? You play one on Tuesday, then there's another one on Thursday. They could, if they didn't care, they could run 4 bracelet events a day. We're trying to keep them prestige. We're trying to keep them limited, and then when you're not playing in one of the bracelet events throughout that week, typically what GG does is you have a phase tournament, right? So let's say Sunday is the $400 PL Losses. Okay, well, all week you can play in heats to qualify for that day too. So you've got that going for you. But then as far as like unique bracelet events, in order to maintain the prestige, you want to sort of like make sure that the schedule is relatively limited. So that means sometimes cutting tournaments that are what we know now as the Terrence Chan Invitational, right? Yeah.
Nice. Okay, it makes sense. All right, let's jump to a couple of things. We're up against the clock. Matt Damon did an interview this week with the Hollywood Reporter, and the host asked him what movies would he like to do a sequel to, and he immediately mentioned Rounders. I think we've been talking about it 10 years ago. There was a script, I think, that Brian Koppelman and his co-writer had done. Obviously, that's going to have to be redone if they want to do another one. But I think he quickly said something about the ownership chain and the concern there and how difficult it was to get this movie made that they all want to do. He's mentioned he talked to Edward Norton recently, and Edward wants to do it, and everybody wants to do it, and they want to make sure that it's fair for the actors and crew, but the ownership chain is the problem there, and which sucks because we all want to catch up with our favorite characters from Rounders, and hopefully that happens.
It's so wild that that was his answer to, like, and like you said, Adam, he didn't hesitate. He's like snap answered. That was the one. Like, look at the career of this man, and like of all the things that he would like to do a sequel to, that was the one. Like, that's incredible. And to my knowledge, I don't even know if Matt Damon even plays poker anymore. But he knew, he was very, if you listen to the interview, he was very like aware of all the changes that have happened in poker, which is a ton. I mean, poker looks nothing like it did in 1997 when Rounders 1 came out. For him to be like that on the pulse, like, it shows that he really wants to do it. And like you said, I mean, it just sucks that if there are these like legal roadblocks and stuff like that, that it's preventing us from what anybody who's listening to this podcast, watching this, anybody who follows poker in any way, like, we all want to see it. It's the one, right?
Well, I tell you what, first of all, I appreciate in his interview how he mentioned, like, the movie kind of bombed when it came out. People didn't really, it wasn't marketed well or whatever, but then it became like a massive cult following. Like, when it went to DVD, like, everybody started to get into it. Obviously, poker was growing. It became really, really big. And then I see some people on Twitter saying, no, don't ruin it with a Rounders 2. I'm like, bro, how about this? Okay. How about this? Matrix, if you don't want to watch it, just pretend it doesn't exist. Okay. I do. I want to see what happened to Worm 20 years later. I want to see if Mikey McD got back together with that awful lawyer woman. I want the end of the story. And I'll tell you what, I believe there will be a Rounders 2. I don't know when, but I believe that sort of the obstacles that, he was talking about, it seems like there's enough of there's a script idea apparently that they've had for quite some time that, I would imagine would still work. And if not, you can update it. You got the guys, right? I think, and Matt Damon's talked about this too. He reveals a lot about the industry. It's much more difficult to make movies now that are good because most movie makers, they make blockbuster superhero films that high cost, high yield because because now, like, what they used to have is they had an engine where you make a movie, then you create a DVD, and the DVD sales, are affiliated, so you get to add that to the tally. So even when a movie doesn't do as great in the box office, you have that back in. That isn't really a thing anymore. People don't really do that. Nobody DVDs. So that's made it a little more difficult to make really good movies. Because you think about it, there used to be like a lot more movies where people just made a really good movie for the sake of making it. And now most of these places just go, okay, well, we can do Batman, Ant-Man, fucking Wasp Man, Cockroach Man. It's very, very different. But I have high hopes. I think with the right sort of push and the financing and all that kind of stuff, we could see that, ironing out the details and making Rounders 2 happen somehow.
Well, how bad do you want to be in it is the question. Like, I know that's got to be on the top of your mind. Like, I don't know if you want the Johnny Chan role that was in Rounders 1 or whatever, but I'm sure that would be a huge part of everything that you want right now is to play yourself in that movie.
Well, I love that stuff. I love acting. I love that sort of thing. I'm friendly with the guys. If they ask me to do a cameo, I will 100% say yes, and it would be a blast. Like, I'm a big fan. I have a couple saved voice messages on my phone. One of them's from Edward Norton.
Can you play it? Play it for us. Play it for us.
Hey, it's about no, I can't play it. I do. I keep it. I keep it on there. I got a few others, but he's definitely one of them. So, yeah, I mean, listen, me growing up, it was actually 1998 when they came to the World Series of Poker, and I got a chance to meet them. And I was just like new on the block, and that was the year where Matt Damon got it in with Kings against Doyle Brunson, who had the aces. Right?
Unbelievable.
And then I remember Edward Norton just like talking through a hand. He lost to Sunon, where it was like, and he was trying to explain the hand to me then, and he was like, the hand that he explained wasn't possible. Like, he had like tens full of nines, but also the guy had quads. Like, he was like 10, 9, 9.
Yeah, first he's the button, but also he acts for
like that. But it was cool because they were like super interested, and they were like new up and coming superstars in the film industry. So I think a full circle return. It might not have all the characters. Like, I don't know how you get KGB in there if you're going to have it. Let's say, for example, I remember rumors of the script being in Europe. Maybe KGB's moved over there and he's got private games going. And
I mean, Leon is real life KGB, right?
Who knows? Yeah.
He's retired. Leon's not in poker anymore. Yeah. Okay, so now that's got me thinking, Dana, what's your biggest brag? Do you think is your biggest brag in your phone? Like, I've seen this as an interview question before. In your phone book, who do you have? Like, I don't think you have Barack Obama in your phone, but like somebody like that. Who's your biggest brag?
Well, in my phone, but Barack Obama will be the biggest brag in terms of when I met him, he knew who I was. You
Right.
know, and he wanted to
But in
talk.
your phone.
In my phone, I mean, there's Ed. I'd have to go through it, but I think
Ed
Edward
Norton's pretty good. Ed Norton's got to be up
Norton's
there.
definitely up there for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny because people ask like, who's your most famous friend, like
Yeah.
real friend, and it's a toss up between Boston Rob Mariano and Phil Kessel. I don't know.
I was going to say Phil Kessel's got to be it. It's got to be
more famous, but like, those are people that are like because I don't really hang. I'm not like Phil Hellmuth. I don't like walk up to Ludacris and tell him how many bracelets I want. You know, like that's Phil. Like that's Phil. That's his genre.
So good. The other thing, and this is a brag because I have this guy in my phone. Alan Kessler banked a $1.2 million slot jackpot, progressive jackpot. That should be the new Chainsaw Corner drop, by the way. That's fantastic.
That was a weak sounding chainsaw there.
So, well, exactly, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
the point.
get it now.
The guy left Chainsaw.
Yeah.
So Chainsaw's playing Buffalo, one of the Buffalo variants, and it's a progressive. And he's playing, I think he's playing 125 a hand, and he played 14 hours straight. Like he sat there for 14 hours, hammering the $125 a hand, I think, and he binks the 1.2 million, which is fantastic and
My
hilarious.
biggest curious question I would ask him is: he did 14 hours. Like, did he pee at all?
Did he leave the
Or, like,
machine?
Like, because I mean, if you do leave the machine, like, what's the protocol there? Do you have somebody watch it for
Yeah,
you?
no, somebody will hold it for you.
Okay,
That's
and then you just go pee?
The slot attendant can hold it
Somebody's
for you.
sitting there for 14 hours with him, holding the machine when he has to go pee? That's hilarious.
No, you just call somebody over and
Call the
lock it.
attendant?
You just press the button and they come over and lock it up for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Anyway, he wiped out his World Series. I think he said he lost 200K at the World Series, and all of a sudden he banks the 1.2 million. And I think somebody asked him if he would give up, or if he had to give up either poker or slots, which one would he give up? And he decided that he would give up poker. He would just play slots.
It wasn't even a decision. He snaps poker.
Which is just awesome and fantastic. The Chainsaw.
He's like, the slots speak to me. I walk around the slot room.
You saw, like, you guys saw, like, David Baker and everybody sort of hammering.
Oh yeah, this is unbelievable.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so I see this in the notes. I mean,
Yeah,
we have
fire it
this.
up. Fire it up.
I'll just throw it up there. Okay. Anyway, it's on Poker Stake. Alan Kessler has multiple events to compete in at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino.
This is
And then
after he banked 1.2 million.
after $1 million jackpot pull, he is selling 30% of the $600 buy-in PLO8 at the Hard Rock at 1.2 markup.
does that?
$600 buy-in, yo.
Not even all of the $600 buy-in, only 30% of the $600. So $180 of the $600 buy-in sold at 1.2.
And he mentioned expenses, all this kind of stuff. It's like he's such a unique individual.
He's
Like,
the best.
and it's so authentic. Like, you obviously, it's now infamous if you're in poker. You saw the Reese's Pieces video where, like, he can't believe the deal he got. It was ice cream with 3 Reese's Pieces, and he's like, "Whoa, wait, I get 6 for $2?" And you see his fucking wow. It's like he just came. Like, he just fucking exploded with joy because he got 3 Reese's Pieces for $2 and was like, can't believe like how he robbed them. You know, he's just that guy. I thought that was like hilarious.
It's so on brand. Yeah, and David Baker's losing his mind and just being like, what's wrong with you? Why are you like this?
A couple other good tweets. Who wants to read some of those?
Yeah, let's go. The first one is Matt Salzberg, who's a fantastic follow. If you don't follow Matt Salzberg and you're a poker guy, jump on there at M Salzberg. GG buying WSOP sounds good until every river card is suddenly a slowly peeled 2 and 3 outer.
Lose my mind.
Which is awesome. At Poker Roasters, the Rounder sequel is taking multiple decades to happen because Mike gets seated at a table with Christoph Vogelsang.
I feel like, that's a good one. I feel like that's almost, in this day and age, a cheap shot at Christoph because, like, that's like half the fucking field.
Yeah.
Tommy Angelo, also a great follow for the Zen of Poker. If you haven't read Tommy's book, I highly recommend it. The universe runs it once, which is...
I don't know if the physicists out there would agree with that. You know, multiverse.
Yeah. Yeah, those were good. All right, guys, that's going to bring it to an end. Thanks to you guys for getting together, the 4 of us, at the same time. So sometimes it's tough to get us together. But thanks to everybody out there for listening to this fine program, and we will see you soon.
And happy birthday, Amanda.
Yay!
Happy 40th.
Yes.
All right, guys.
See ya.
What did Norton say? I want to hear.